Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and we've got some mint on card sales, a number of different mocks sold from AFA/CIB that I wanted to go through. The prices were pretty nuts. I did go through all of the auction bidding history for all of the AFA/CIB items, so we'll dig into that in a little bit. But everything looked on the up and up, to be the spoiler on this. Everything looked fine. One buyer apparently bought at least 4 of the auctions. So I do have some other non-CIB AFA items I wanted to talk about, but these are the highlights. Believe me, there were some beautiful items that they had that ended last night, but the prices were certainly more than I could pay. All right, let's start off with the non-CIB items. This seller has some really nice mint on cards that I wanted to show you. I believe I had this one in a what to buy video. This was a 47 back 4-lam offer for Bossk clear blister. It's very tough to find this particular mint on card with a clear blister. And this one had some light edge wear to it, but I still think this one probably gets an overall 80 if you were to grade it. It was just a very nice example of the 47 back Bossk. This is one of 2 clear blister 47 backs for the Bossk Bounty Hunter that I've seen sell in the last month. And then, you know, back when I was buying Bossk mocks willy-nilly, I couldn't find this to save my life with a clear blister. It's just very, very tough to find. So this one was listed for $550. I think they made, the seller made somebody an offer for $500, and it did sell. So don't blame you at all for buying that. I certainly, if I was in the buying mood, I would have paid that in a heartbeat, just given what we saw the AFA 85 sell for over at Hakes back in January from the Jeff Jacobs collection. It was 4 figures that it sold for, and to get, you know, an ungraded one at that price. Now, is it clear blister? I mean, some of the angles, it looks clear blister to me. Other angles, it's kind of hard to tell. To me, I think it is a clear blister. It looks clear, but, you know, you can make an argument up in the left there that it's starting to yellow very slightly. Tough to say for sure. If it is yellowed, it's only slightly, and this would have been perfectly satisfactory to me at that $500 to $550 price point. Very good deal there. Same seller also had this one, and it was, you know, it sold for a lot of money, but it is a tough one to find, and that's the 48 back B for Han Solo in his Bespin outfit. So this is the Revenge of the Jedi clear blister, and you can see there it's got the Revenge of the Jedi Admiral Akbar offer sticker on the back. So this is the 48 back B. 80, 80, 85 were the sub-scores on that one, and it was unpunched. I mean, that's a very nice example, and it did sell for $11.50, which, you know, I don't know if it would sell for that in an auction, but I would imagine it would be pretty expensive. So pretty much any ESB Han Bespin clear blister high grade goes for a lot of money. I mean, that's just kind of the fact of it, and it is certainly a beautiful card back. That's a mint on card I do not have, is the Han Bespin on an ESB card bag. That's very nice. Here was a 32 back B, I believe. Yeah, 32B for Yoda, unpunched, clear blister, probably about 75 grade, at least for the card. It did have the Unitoy factory stamp on the bottom of the footer, which is pretty cool. You see some of them with a U and some of them with an S for the Smile Factory, but that U denotes the Unitoy factory. This one did have it looks like it has a little crack in the blister, or it's just, you know, maybe poorly assembled originally, which does happen sometimes, but overall, very clean example. This one sold over in the UK for $431 US, which is 334 pounds, but probably about a 75 grade is my guess on that one. Next up was a mint on card Return of the Jedi. This was the Hoth Snowtrooper. This one was the 77 back A, and, you know, it had some faint like spider veins to it. The seller was kind enough to show those there, but it was clear blister. You can see some more faint veins there on the front of the card. So this is probably, you know, my guess would be a 75 at best, but that clear blister certainly looks nice. It looks nice from far away, especially. It's just, you know, it's got some spider veins here and there, but the seller did a really good job of disclosing those veins to it. They don't show up from far away that much, It's really just when you get in the right lighting. So $425 on that one. And then this was an AFA 70 clear blister Luke Hoth on a Return of the Jedi. This one was a 65 back A clear blister, but only a 70 overall. 70, 85, 75 were the sub scores on that one. You can see the heavy scuffing on the back of the card there, and then it had a pretty pronounced crease by the hang tab, 2 or 3 creases there. But presents really nicely. Presents a lot nicer than a 70 grade. Just, you know, when you have the card score have that many defects, that brings the overall score down, even though the rest of the sub scores were not too bad, with a 75 for the figure, 85 for the blister. Not sure why I got a 75 for the figure. It didn't look like it's got too much discoloration to it, but that's what they gave it. So $495 on that one. And I think this is the second time this one sold. This is the 77A. It got relisted at auction again by Gold Star Tech. Obviously, the alternate image Luke Gunner card back, AFA 80 plus. Now, I think it sold for closer to $1,900 the first time, and you know, either the buyer didn't pay or whatever, but it got relisted and it sold for $1,430 the second go around. Card 80, blister 85, figure 85. So very nice one. And someone else mentioned this in the comments for a recent video. There's been a lot of Luke Gunner cards lately, and he's right. There's been 2 or 3 or 4 that have sold all within the last month. So that's just the way it goes, man. You can never predict what's going to happen on eBay. I can go months without finding a certain item that I've been looking, or a year sometimes, looking for a certain item, or not seeing a certain item, and then 2 or 3 get listed back to back to back. So you cannot predict it. Next up is a Palitoy Tri-Logo for Yak Face. It was fully sealed, apparently. It's just a lot of dings on the blister. No weapon packed inside in this example. And it's got that 1 pound 59 pence sticker. Those were applied at the factory. This one's, you know, at best, what, like a 60 or 70 grade? I would say 60 or 70, somewhere in there. But it was sold at auction. It sold for $13.25 on 9 bids. We'll have some more data on some higher grade Tri-Logos here in a second, but that one did sell for $13.25. And again, you know, lots of wear to it, but a pretty good budget-friendly data point if you can live with the defects to the blister. But it was fully sealed from what I can tell, just lots of little dings and things like that on the blister. So that Yak Face sold for $13.25. I've got another one that just sold, though. Before we dig into that, another Gold Star Tech item. This was an AFA 75 Gamorrean Guard on the Power of the Force card back. Unpunched, no price sticker. It sold for $3,049, and this is obviously exclusive to New Zealand and Australia, one of several, along with the AT-AT driver and Nikto, that were only available on the Power of the Force card down in Australia and New Zealand. So very tough to find this particular example. A little bit of card wave to it. 75 for the card, blister 80, figure 80. And $3,049.99 was the final bid price on that one. Probably about right, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just a tough one to find and very, very rare. Next up, this Kia Mall was an AFA 80 and sold for $510. It was a clear blister according to the AFA label. If it has yellowed, it's just yellowed slightly. It's not much. It's hard to tell from these photos. It could just be shadows. It could still be a clear blister. I can't tell. To me, it looks clear blister, but you know, here's the label on it. You can see very clearly it doesn't have the yellow designation on it. Card 80, blister 80, figure 85. And that one sold for $510. It was a punched example too. So a big number, but you know, basically the market is saying that it is a clear blister. You can see a pretty pronounced crease on the back of the card there, coming off the hang tab. So I'm surprised it got the 80 score with that pronounced of a crease, but it doesn't really show that I can tell on the front of the card. And from what I've heard from Chris Whitlock, one of the owners of CAS, he was telling me that when you got creases like this on the back of the card that don't show up on the front of the card, they don't factor those in nearly as much as they do as if it was on the front of the card in terms of the card subscore. So maybe that's why I got the 80 score for the card, because the faint crease does not show up really on the front. That's just what he told me. So I don't know. I mean, obviously that's what CAS uses for their grading, if the owner tells me that. But AFA must kind of similarly factor that in, because I've seen a number of examples like that where there's a crease that shows on the back but not on the front. And so there you go. All right, on to AFA CIB. Some of them sold for really great deals. Now, I had mentioned some kind of wonky bidding, some zero feedback bidders on some of their items lately. I checked every single one of these items that ended, and all of the auctions had bidders that have had previous transactions. And one bidder bid on like 4 or 5 different unpunched tri-logos and won 4 or 5 of them. So, but everything looked fine to me. You know, when I see zero feedback bidders on very expensive items, it raises my alarm bells. I'm not accusing AFA of doing anything, okay? I'm just saying that it's questionable. And it could be the consignor bidding on his own items. We don't know, okay? We don't know what's going on. But I will say that every single one of these auctions ended on the up and up from what I can tell. And I wanted to at least, go through them because the prices were substantial, but it's proof that people are willing to pay big numbers for them. And this is one that my buddy Matt brought up, and he actually felt like this was low, and I have to agree with him. 12B AFA 85 plus 85, 85, 90 archival case. I would argue that this is a low number, 1575. Very, very, high grade item, and I would argue that was a great deal. Very, very good deal on that one. Next up was an AFA 70 12 back A Death Squad Commander. It was only a 70 grade, but it was a 12 back A, $910. Again, I think that number is fair with 280 subgrades, archival case, punched example, probably about right for a 12A, 910. This one sold for $550. It was a 20 back B Stormtrooper AFA 60, and the blister got a 60. I'm assuming it's got some kind of crack in the blister there somewhere. Probably at the stem somewhere is my guess. So that's why it got the 60. Oh, you can see it right there. Lower left corner. It's got a little crack or gap on the blister there. So that's why it got the 60 grade. 550 though, it's not a number I'd pay, but I can understand it because it certainly presents a lot nicer than a 60 grade just because of that gap in the blister there. I would just be worried that it would get worse or just fall apart. But 550's, I guess a fair number. I don't know. Here was an AFA 80 plus blue lightsaber Luke Jedi. Those appeared on the 65Bs, and that number's right in line with where these have been selling. $1,400 ish is about where they've been going. They've come back down to earth a little bit on the blue lightsaber 65B Luke Jedis. So that's what that one did sell. And 1425 is again right in line with recent sales. Next up, we dig into the tri-logos. This was an AFA 85 low gray. That one sold for $416. Maybe a little higher than I was expecting. 350-ish was kind of the number I was expecting, but it did sell at $416. 21B medical droid. This one sold for $695. I would argue that that's a good deal too. That's about what I paid for my AFA 85 unpunched tri-logo 21B medical droid. I might have paid a little bit less, maybe like $550, but that one sold for $695, probably about right, just given the other recent AFA 85 unpunched that we've seen. This one I thought was a great deal. The Luke Battle Poncho AFA 85, we've seen higher numbers than this recently. And I think it was the £1.59 price sticker that held this one back, because we've seen ones without that sticker go for higher, way higher, $800-900. So this one did 85, 85, 90 unpunched, but I think that sticker holding it back a little bit. But $625, that's a great deal, very, very fair price. The Neon Num was an AFA 90 punched example, it sold for $786. We've seen just AFA 85s go for pretty close to that number, if not at that number. This one had the smaller Meccano blister as well. So this one was a very attractive one. And I thought, you know, for that price point, that's a good deal. That's a really good deal for a 90. Again, we've seen many AFA 80s, 85s sell anywhere in that 550 to 750 range. So for a 90 grade, that was a good deal. Now this one went a lot higher than I was expecting. It was a Clipper catalog offer on the back, but the Imperial Gunner is very expensive, unpunched. But you know, I was thinking like $800-900. We've obviously seen some go for over $1,000, but that 1691 number is big. And some bidder bid, you know, I went back and looked at the bidding history again, and along with the 21B medical droid, and this one, and then one or two others here, I think, coming up, they just, you know, they bid high, and that's going to happen. I mean, there are some people that have deep pockets and only collect AFA 85s, only collect unpunched, and when they come up, they just bid high, and they don't care. And that seemed to be the case on these when looking back through the bidding history. So 1691 on that one. This one was a punched Princess Leia Organa that sold at 1806. We've seen other examples for Leia on the Tri-Logo go for that number or higher. So that's actually probably the lowest number that we've seen, if memory serves, for one of these. We've seen some that have gone over 2,000 from CIB in recent auctions. Next up was the Luke Bespin. This one sold for $23.50. And again, that's in line with recent sales. I think that the last one, they had one auction session maybe 3, 4, 5 months ago where they had the blonde hair and this brown hair, not this particular one, but brown hair. Both of them were AFA 85s, and they both sold in this price point. I think the blonde haired sold for higher, and the brown hair was kind of in this ballpark. So I want to say it was even lower than this number. So this one with the brown hair did sell for $23.50, and this unpunched Tri-Logo Stormtrooper sold for crazy money. This is the biggest number, but it did have the Bespin blaster inside. So I'm assuming that this is a one of one, or one of only a couple. But this one did have the Bespin blaster inside instead of the regular Stormtrooper blaster. Is it enough to pay $25.50 for? To me, no. But that's what it sold for. So $25.50, and that, again, that was the same bidder. All of the unpunched seemed to be the same bidder. They wanted to win them all. And then finally, the Droids C-3PO unpunched AFA 85 sold for $13.26. That's very much in line with recent sales. $1,300 to $1,500 is about where they go for. So none of these sales prices were particularly shocking, except for maybe that Stormtrooper. That one was way, way above. The Stormtrooper and the Imperial Gunner, I think those two were just very much above fair market value for me. But clearly somebody else didn't mind paying up for them. So they were certainly beautiful. I would love to have them myself. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at recent sales. Be sure to leave me a like. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.